What's the most idiotic thing you've ever gotten blamed for at school? When I was in middle school, I got blamed for something so unbelievably stupid that even years later, I still shake my head when I think about it. It wasn't just unfair. It was the kind of thing that makes you realize how quickly adults can jump to conclusions and how powerless you can feel when you're a kid with no way to defend yourself. It happened in 7th grade, right after lunch. Our school had this ancient cafeteria that always smelled faintly of tater tots, bleach, and whatever mystery meat they'd cooked that day. My friends and I usually sat at the same long table near the back, trading parts of our lunches and complaining about homework. On this particular day, the cafeteria was extra chaotic. Someone had spilled an entire carton of chocolate milk near the front. A group of kids were flicking french fries at each other, and the lunch ladies were yelling for everyone to calm down. I was sitting quietly, actually finishing my sandwich for once, when I heard a loud pop. At first I thought it was just a tray dropping, but then I saw a cloud of white powder drifting through the air. Within seconds, the whole cafeteria was coughing and laughing. Someone had set off one of those giant powdered chalk erasers, the ones teachers used on blackboards back before smartboards took over. The powder had exploded everywhere, coating the tables, the floor, and even some unlucky kid's hair. Naturally, the teachers on lunch duty lost their minds. They rushed over, trying to figure out who was responsible. Kids were pointing in all directions, half of them laughing too hard to speak. And then suddenly, all fingers turned toward me. Why me? Because the chalk eraser had come from our table. And apparently, since I was the one closest to the edge, everyone decided I must have been the culprit. Before I could even process what was happening, one of the teachers barked, "You! Out in the hallway! Now!" My friends tried to protest, saying it wasn't me, but the teacher wasn't having it. I remember standing there stunned, with white chalk dust still floating in the air around me, while an entire cafeteria full of kids watched me get marched out like I was some criminal mastermind. Here's the kicker. I hadn't even touched the eraser. In fact, I didn't even know where it came from. Later, I found out one of the kids from another table had tossed it over just to see what would happen. But at the time, all I knew was that I was in big trouble for something I didn't do. They dragged me to the principal's office, sat me down, and gave me this lecture about safety hazards and setting a bad example. The principal even threatened to suspend me for reckless behavior. I remember my throat tightening, my palms sweaty, trying to insist over and over. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. But when you're 12 years old, sitting across from 3 adults glaring at you, your words don't carry much weight. The worst part was calling my mom. The school made her leave work early to come in, and I'll never forget the look on her face when she walked into the office. She looked half furious, half exhausted, and I could tell she thought I was guilty before I even opened my mouth. "What did you do?" she asked, in that tone parents use when they're too embarrassed to yell in public. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just sat there, repeating myself like a broken record. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Eventually, after what felt like hours, another student finally confessed. He admitted he was the one who threw the eraser and set it off. Apparently, he felt guilty watching me take all the blame. The principal looked shocked, like it never occurred to him that I might be telling the truth. Did I get an apology? Of course not. They just sent me back to class with a vague, "All right, don't let this happen again," like I had anything to do with it in the first place. When I walked back into the classroom, everyone stared at me like I was some kind of legend. Half the kids thought it was hilarious that I got dragged out in front of the cafeteria, and the other half actually believed I'd pulled it off. My friends knew the truth, but to the rest of the school, I was suddenly the kid who blew up the cafeteria with chalk. That stupid reputation followed me for months. Looking back, the whole thing is almost funny in a ridiculous way, but at the time, it was humiliating. I got chewed out by teachers, embarrassed in front of my classmates, and nearly suspended, all because I happened to be sitting in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was the day I learned 2 valuable lessons. 1, middle school justice is completely broken, and 2, sometimes life really does hand you the blame for things you didn't do. All you can do is keep your head up and wait for the truth to come out, preferably before your mom grounds you for a month.